Support for This Is an Experiment is brought to you by Manscaped, who is the best in men's below-the-waist grooming. Their products are precision-engineered tools for your family jewels. And Manscaped's Performance Package is the ultimate men's hygiene bundle. Join over 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with the exclusive offer for you. That is 20% off and free worldwide shipping with the code EXPERIMENT at manscaped.com. If my math is correct, that's about 8 million balls.
The experience is the experiment.
Today's guest is a singer, a songwriter, and an artist who hails from St. Louis, Missouri, but has since made his way out to Los Angeles, California. If he's not creating hits for his artist project, he's creating hits for some of your favorite artists in the U.S. and in Korea. Please welcome today's guest, the one and only Anthony Russo. Welcome,
Thank you so much.
welcome, brother.
Thanks for having me, man.
Dude, of course. I'm so glad we got you in and we get to do this. I've been looking forward to it.
I know you texted me like I'm going out of town and for like 2 months. I'm like, say less.
I'm going to Vietnam in a few weeks.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude.
Going to backpack.
Backpacking. Anywhere else in Asia?
No, we're doing just Vietnam for the first 2 weeks.
Wow,
And
dude.
then and we'll go back again. But
Yeah, for sure.
I can't step away from this for too long.
Yeah, that's fair, man. I met my wife in Thailand.
Really?
Funny enough, yeah. She was backpacking in Asia for 3 months post university. So she's from Portugal.
Wow.
And yeah, this is a crazy like interwebbed just story from all these crazy things that happened to lead up to that. But a friend of hers posted a song of mine called Ghost Stories. It was like one of my very first songs that ever did anything for me back in the SoundCloud days. And she like added it to her, her Spotify or whatever and was listening to it while she was traveling. And then one day decided to like look me up because it was just a picture of a ghost. There was nothing with my face on it. She's like, I'm gonna just look this guy up and be like, see what he's about. And she sent me a message just saying like, hey, I love this song. And I like, looked at her profile and saw that it was very outward expression, right? Like this wasn't somebody who was taking a lot of selfies or like all these crazy things about her traveling. And I, at that time, had seen very little of the world, living in St. Louis for most of my life.
Totally.
So I took an interest and just wanted to know more about her life, and I was very curious and open at the time. And one thing led to another. A week later, I booked a flight to Thailand to meet her at the end of her trip, and it's the first time that I'd ever really left the country before. Because
wild.
Yeah, like I had a passport because I went to Mexico on like a classic, Midwest high school vacation.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I think we went to like Playa del Carmen or something, like a resort. But I had a passport. So I texted my manager like, yo, can I is there anything crazy happening the next like 2 weeks? He's like, no. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go to Thailand. And
holy shit.
Yeah. We met there and the rest is history. We did long distance for like 6 months. I went on tour, so we got to meet like on the East Coast. She came to America for the first time, visited me before I went to tour. Wow. After tour, we stayed in New York for like a week together. I flew to meet her family in Portugal, did long distance for like 6 months. And then, it was like, before you, graduate and get a job, like just like come try and start maybe a life here. 'Cause there's already stuff happening for me. I can't really leave. And she was down for it. And it's been, and we got married, partially because we wanted to, partially because,
visas
and stuff. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's been almost 4 years now.
Dude,
so
that's beautiful.
Yeah, man.
What a first way to travel.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it was a lot running through my head on that 30-hour flight.
Oh, I can't even imagine.
It was a lot of anxiety, I was going through it at that time too, just like in my own personal life. It was like my 9-month period in LA. You can imagine.
Absolutely.
That's kind of where you get break down a bit.
Yeah,
I
you
feel
start
like
realizing where you are a little bit.
Yeah.
And that it's a tough world out here. It really is.
Yeah.
But it's also, when you start figuring it out and you find your community out here, it's one of the most important places you can be.
And I feel like people forget that you have to do that when you move to a new place, because a lot of people moving out here are young, just like I was when I moved out here. And you're used to your friends being brought to you via school, via clubs, sports, people in your town.
Absolutely.
Right? Like you're not out there like trying to make friends. It just happens.
Yeah, it's
right?
about your geography.
Exactly. When you move to LA, you have to make friends. And that was a skill that like I didn't, not necessarily a skill I didn't have, but I just didn't really think I needed to do that, right? I just focused on the work, and then 9 months in, you're like, I'm super lonely, and like, you know,
Life hits.
yeah, life hits a little bit. You're kind of like, what is all this worth for real? Like my family aren't here to celebrate. I live with 2 roommates that I work with all day, every day. I don't have really any close friends outside of that. Everything is related to business or work. So
Totally.
yeah,
It's interesting because before you move out to LA, especially if you're from the Midwest or somewhere like that, that is a lot less like LA. When you're moving out here, your idea is, okay, I'm going here, so I better be working harder than everybody else 100% of the time. And you can do that for a little bit, and that's an important way to start. And then you start realizing that all these external influences that become the art start fading.
right.
You leave them. You get too far from them, and you have to start creating more of those. And so many people come to LA with this notion that everybody here is out to get you and not here with you. And I think that's a huge issue with this place, is the preconceived notions before you come here, because it's really just such a big place that you just have to work a little harder to pick through the people that you need in your life.
Right.
And, you know, you're going to meet people that aren't right and that'll fuck you over and have those situations just like you will anywhere else.
Yeah.
There's just a lot more people to pick through, but when you can find it and you find the crew that you obviously have, I mean, it's one of the keys to success out here. I really, really believe it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's nothing quite like that synergy of having it's just a squad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's just it's integral in having a meaningful and like successful life. I think like
Totally.
just having a good group of people.
It also, there's something about walking through a place with a bunch of talented people and watching them work hard that makes you want to work even harder, even on days where you don't feel it.
Yeah.
You know, it'll give you that spark that maybe isn't there all the time. And it's so huge. And it's what the whole first season was about, is just who do you surround yourself with and how does it affect your art?
You know, it's funny you said, because I feel like when my girl moved in, and like I still have roommates now. I live with my creative director / videographer. His name's Abir Hashim. He's the illest. He just actually moved here from Canada. Finally got his visa figured out.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Yeah. And then I live with another roommate named Jeremy Schmetterer, who's a sick producer, songwriter, artist. He's actually from Chicago. But we met prior to that back in my St. Louis days, because he went to school in the University of Missouri, and he helped me play guitar on some shows that I was doing back in the day. And so that kind of came full circle, and now he lives with me as well. But all that to say, you know, sometimes I miss, just for a moment, I miss living with like 7 guys who are just like always just destroying things. Somebody's up to something all the time, right? It's very annoying, but at the same time, like you said, there's that sort of like, oh, I gotta get up and get something going here, because he's doing it and he's doing it, right? And like you could take that too far, but for the most part, I think it's good when you're just kind of on the come up and trying to working it from the beginning.
It's like a fraternity. The reason a lot of people join frats in new schools, especially ones that they don't know people, is what better way to meet people and to find your community. And that's how I feel it is. You know, a fraternity, you don't want to live there forever, but the years you did, you'll be talking about forever, and you'll gain inspiration from forever. And I think that's a big thing. Go put yourself in a situation where you can't leave all these people. You have to be surrounded by them, and you're going to find things that you would never find on your own. Yeah. And then when you're ready, you take them to your own apartment where you have just you and your girl, and you get that experience. And there's so much time for that, but it is so integral to the way that you can progress as an artist or a musician or whatever part of this industry you're trying to overtake. It's massive.
Our friend Pink has a great quote. I'm not sure where he got it from, but he always says you got to have output. No, so you got to have input to have output, right? Like you got to get out, do things.
It's so true.
In order to, I don't know, even if it doesn't directly go into your art, subconsciously, right? It's not like you have to go out and be like, oh, that sign, like I'm gonna write a song about this sign that I saw. Like that's it. It's just it's really subconscious.
It's almost more important not to do that, like to allow wherever you are to happen and to be in. And I think if you're focusing too much, you're gonna end up missing the things that really become your fuel. Yeah. So Tell me a little bit more about you. We were talking about it earlier. You are a singer, you're a songwriter, and you're an artist.
Yeah.
What was first?
A rapper.
I love it.
Yeah, a rapper. Yeah, man, I grew up just loving hip hop. Just loved hip hop. And I also had like a love for pop music as well. My dad kept the CDs rolling in the car with like the Eagles, and he was super early on John Mayer. Like, John Mayer, like I remember my dad probably wouldn't, you wouldn't think he'd be listening to John Mayer at the time, but he was. So there was a lot of that, a lot of Train, Coldplay, Lifehouse, Tonic, all these early 2000s just classic bands, man. Like real easy songwriting,
Totally.
is what I kind of grew up on when I'm with my family. And then like I had older siblings who were super into hip hop and R&B and EDM, whatever it was. And that's where I kind of grew my love for that. I also had my cousin Chase, who was just like, he lived with us. He's just like a crazy uncle, but he introduced me to like, obviously Nelly was really big in St. Louis, and he'd be taking me to like elementary school, whatever, and he'd just be, what's the album that I'm not thinking of? Country Grammar would just be playing in the car.
Wow, I haven't heard that in a minute.
Yeah, right. But there's just a balance of like melody and just rhythm that I love so much about that. So yeah, so my dad got an Apple computer when I was in like 6th grade or something like that, maybe 5th grade. And I would just come home every day before he got home from work, and I would just open up GarageBand and pull in like a Lil Wayne. And I remember the one in particular that I would rap over every single day. It had the hook of Drake in there, but the verses were open. It was the I'm still fly, I'm sky high, not dare anybody to try and cut. Yeah, exactly.
Dude,
so I would just like freestyle verses just for probably like 2 or 3 hours every day, and just record them literally through the speaker. I had like this speaker I would hold, just super shitty. But what I didn't know that was happening was I was like getting better at like whatever that was, right? Like I was listening to artists, and then I was going in and like without a filter on command, just like freestyling different things. And usually it was about the dumbest shit ever, what a 5th grader would be rapping about.
Totally. But the fact that you were doing that in 5th grade is massive.
Yeah, it was very instrumental as far as like my development. And then I got some homies together and showed them like, oh, you can do these things. You can bring in these Apple loops and make like a beat in like a GarageBand, and we made like a little EP. We were called like the Juice Box Boys or something. I burned a bunch of CDs, sold them at not sold them. I gave them out pretty much at my elementary school, and I still have one of the CDs. It's got to be somewhere. My mom probably has it. But that was like my first sign, I think, for people around me that like, oh, like he's interested in music, because it doesn't necessarily run in my family. My uncle is kind of like his own kind of savant. He plays in a blues band, and he's like the guitar guy. And my dad played a little bit of guitar, but everybody else aside from that, like no interest in music, like no inclination, you would say.
Totally.
And then fast forward to like high school, right? Kind of put the Apple stuff, like the GarageBand stuff away, and would just be more of like a party trick, right? Be at parties with friends, whatever, smoking, drinking, and people would like turn on an instrumental.
You start freestyling.
Yeah. Or like, smoking and driving was always one too, where you just smoke a little bit and turn on an instrumental. Like that was some of the best memories are just.
That was my childhood.
Yeah, man. Like, right.
Absolutely.
And there was a couple friends who had who were courageous enough to hop in, and that was always fun, gas them up or whatever. But I really would, people would just gather around, and it would just be, I'd go for as long as I could, and just like off the top. And it was very enjoyable. It was very casual at that point, right? Like there was no stakes. There was no like, oh, I'm gonna go do this. So now there's this pressure. It was just.
It wasn't yet your identity.
No, it wasn't. It was just like a part of me, right? Just a part of my personality is being able to do that. And I'd say like I didn't honestly start taking it serious until like towards the end of high school, where like right at the end of high school, I went to college for a year, dropped out. In that first year of college, I started to realize, I went to University of Missouri, I started to realize like, yo, I don't know exactly what it is that I want out of college, right? And which I'm sure a lot of people find themselves in that situation.
Absolutely.
But I fortunately came from a very privileged household where my my parents could help me. They didn't pay for all my school, but they paid for like a quarter of it. I got some loans for the other side of it and maybe a grant or two here and there. But my mom was the type of mom who was like, I think her generation, their generation is very much like, just go for the experience. Like literally just go for the experience. And I was like, all right, I guess like I'll go for the experience. But after being there for a little bit of time, it was just like, I don't know, man. Everybody talks like this is like the best time. Like this is it, right? This is like the moment of your life. And then it's just like downhill from there. And I just couldn't get on board with that thinking. So I just was just trying to find what it is that I could do for the rest of my life. If I took a hard look at myself in the mirror, I'm like, what, like nothing's too big. Like what would you want to do? And I was like, well, I love music, you know, I love music. I've never really done it seriously, but I feel like I have it in me, right? Like to do whatever I can. It can't be that hard, right? I know the SoundCloud existed. It was a big thing at the time. It's like you can just make your own music and drop it. There's beats on YouTube. Like there's ways to do this. Totally. Just get a microphone, you know, put some foam in the closet and you're already halfway there, you know?
Absolutely.
And that's what it was for me. So I bought like some music theory books, I remember, and started learning about just like the basics of music. I figured like I don't want to be in sessions or like start working with people who know shit like that and I just have no idea what I'm talking about.
How did you have that foresight? Because one of the big things that I've realized with this podcast and getting the opportunity to talk to a lot of peers of ours is that's one of the biggest downfalls of where we grew up or the time period is it was so early in the internet that there wasn't anybody out there letting you know, hey, when you're going to walk into a session, you got to know this, and this to at least keep up or to feel like you can be a part of the conversation.
Yeah.
Where did you kind of get that idea?
I think it just came from I knew I was missing something. I knew that there was a language that I didn't understand and that only being able to freestyle would get me so far. Yeah. Right. Like I knew that wouldn't be enough as it is to just like take me the distance. And I told myself I'd be in sessions with people like Pharrell. I'd be in sessions with people like John Mayer. Like I don't want to be illiterate. Like I don't want to go in there and not know what I'm talking about. Now, does that mean that when I'm writing, I'm like, oh, that's the G. Oh, you went to the A minor 7 and went to the through the B11 there. Oh, like I'm not that type of person, and I don't care to be like that. But it definitely helps when it came to just like building simple like chord structures and songs, things like that. So anyway, I bought a book on that, read the shit out of it, studied a ton of, basically went to YouTube University, or I dropped out of Mizzou, went to YouTube University, and just spent like, 8 hours a day just combing through learning Logic Pro, upgraded to Logic Pro, real
GarageBand.
Yeah, exactly. I started taking it seriously, put some foam in the studio, got a job at a car wash and to pay for studio time. And what I would do is just like, I'd get beats off YouTube. I'd write to them during the week. On the weekend, I'd take all the money I made from the car wash, and there was like a little studio in St. Louis downtown that I'd go and I'd pay an engineer to just record the things that I'd written. And then I would just put a song out every 2 weeks, very Russ Blueprint vibe. I would like just put a song out every 2 weeks, and I was like, you know what? I don't care. I know I have 0 fans right now. I know I have very few listeners now, but I'm gonna just start putting a song out every 2 weeks. I don't care. I want people to just like start having this thing of this guy's gonna put out a song every 2 weeks. I'm gonna be prepared for it. Yeah, and that type of like, I wasn't even sure if I was gonna be prolific enough to do that, but
the consistency is everything.
Yes, and there was a valuable lesson learned in that time that I take even with me now, and it's kind of this release of perfection, because if I wanted to stick to my goal of releasing every 2 weeks, maybe there was going to be a shitty song that snuck through and went out, right? Like, and I also had to learn this decisive feeling of knowing when something's done, right? Like being in the studio, I got 20 minutes left, clock's ticking, wages are paid, my money's gone. This is all I have. I need to get something out of this. Yeah. Let's make decisions, right? Let's be decisive here. What are we taking? What are we leaving? What are we changing? Print it, bounce the wave, put the limiter on it. That's it. We're done,
What an important lesson for life too, and in understanding constraints. And you look at these people like Russ or somebody like a Logan Paul or Jake Paul, and people say, how do I get there in a year? You don't unless you're willing to put out something every fucking day or whatever that is for you, every week, every 2 weeks. I mean, the consistency is massive, and getting yourself to more people is massive, and also the growth. That's one of the huge things. I guarantee if you go listen to all of your songs from that stint, they got better.
Yeah.
And they got better and they got better, and they led into you being able to have the opportunity to write for some massive people, including finding success in your own project that probably would never have happened in the same time frame if you didn't have the lesson that you taught yourself growing up. I mean, that's so massive.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I give everything to the mentality of myself at that time period. You know, I was very into self-development at that time. I'm kind of off that train a little bit now. I feel like it can be that whole industry can be kind of honestly toxic, like if you take it too far, right?
Absolutely. Balance.
But at that time, I needed that. For that part of my life, it was essential to keep me from quitting when I had a million reasons to quit.
Yeah.
Right? Like I needed to almost be ignorant, and I was, right?
Totally.
I thought I was the best in the world. Like I was like, there's no one better than me. I would write it on my wall. I'd spend 5 minutes every morning visualizing where I wanted to be. I'd visualize myself on stage. I'd watch videos of G-Eazy's tour just so I could have a better depiction of what I should be visualizing. I'd watch people like Jake Miller, and it's funny enough that those were the first two people to ever ask me on tour, which is very strange.
How incredible, though.
We'll get to that. And yeah, so I took that very seriously, and I needed to just be like, I'm the best. Because if I didn't feel that way, I probably would have quit somewhere along the 20 songs, nobody listening to this and that.
Totally.
But yeah, anyway, so I did that. And then things just kind of started to grow exponentially. Like the plan just worked to the full effect. That on top of, I also was reaching out to other artists on SoundCloud. And this is when I started to sing slightly, because I'd be like, what can I offer these people? I also came to a realization that maybe being just a rapper would limit me in some way when I know that I have like the tone.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know pitch. I don't know anything about singing, but I had a good tone, which at these day and age might be more important than being on key.
Absolutely.
So I would just write hooks and send them to these other rappers on SoundCloud and be like, yo, here's basically a free song. Just leave me on it and let me get your fans, basically.
Wow.
Is how I would, almost like the Drake effect.
Yeah.
You know, back in the day when Drake would just be the hook guy on
was the
everybody's
feature.
song. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was. And it worked so well. It worked so well that my SoundCloud just grew and grew and grew. And then a couple blogs picked up a song of mine called Ghost Stories, the one that my wife found originally. And that was kind of the moment. That was the moment. And that was enough leverage to find a management company out in LA that wanted to work with me called The Revels Group. They managed G-Eazy at the time, which was crazy because that was like one of my favorite artists in the world.
Real fast, what was that feeling like? What was that when you found out that not only did somebody believe in you, but it was somebody who also believed in the person and one of the people that inspired you to even start? I mean, that had to be pretty special.
Yeah, it's like the feeling was bigger than where I was at the time. It was like that, and that's why I can remember so well those moments. Like I remember being in my basement, and I was with my best friend at the time, who ended up being my day-to-day manager, and he had been direct messaging a guy named Jamil Davis for like almost 2 years. He didn't tell me this, but he had been messaging him for like 2 years, maybe once a week, just saying like,
that's JP.
No, this was actually Ryan Kincaid at the time. His name is Ryan Kincaid. He still works in the music industry. We don't work together anymore, but he still works in the music industry. But he was my best friend, kind of my ride or die. Dropped out of school with me when there was nothing to manage, and just like was like, "Yo, I want to manage you and just like do what I can, send cold emails to people, sharing your song, whatever, help you come up with ideas."
Yeah,
and
believed in you.
Yeah, he did, and it was just us, kind of against the world for real. And
it's amazing.
And yeah, so Jamil Davis just never responded. And then one day, like, we're just sitting in my basement. This is right after Ghost Stories kind of blew up. I got some blog attraction and this and that, which also that might have been just as good of a feeling when I got a message from Swaggy Tracks saying like, yo, we're going to post your song. And I was like, I remember getting home from work at like midnight from the car wash and being like, just like leaning against the kitchen, the kitchen cabinet while it's just silent in the house. And I see that DM on Twitter and I'm just like, I made it. I was like, I mate it, dude.
Absolutely.
Like, tear come out. I'm like, I did it. Like, I fucking did it. People are gonna hear my music. Like, this is this was such a dream at one point that I'm starting to taste these things. And then it couldn't have been a couple weeks later that Jamil responded to him over DMs while we were sitting in my basement. And we were just freaking out. Like, he's holding the phone. We're like, oh my God, this is great. Because, he was also Drake's tour manager.
Yeah.
This is a big dude in the industry.
Absolutely.
And we had never met a famous person in our lives. Like, we were just like these two kids from St. Louis. And the guy's like, I remember Jamil asked him, are you smart? That was the thing that he said. He said, are you smart? Which is a very provocative question. And kind of just like, you think it's like is this a trick question? But we just said, hey, we're smart. I mean, I don't know what else to answer that. Yeah, we're smart. Fast forward through this, he invites Ryan out to work an event for him, basically as an assistant. I fly out too, because of course, like I should be there, at least in the vicinity. And then, so he has an event at a place called Delilah's. Familiar with Delilah's in West Hollywood?
Absolutely.
Very like bougie kind of lounge.
Yeah.
It was the party next door after party. And Ryan was just helping work the guest list, do whatever for Jamil. And in the middle of I wasn't there. I was staying at a friend's. And he hits up Ryan like, where's your artist? Like, you should be bringing your artist around, right? You're a manager, right? Like, you should be bringing your artist around. Text me immediately. Yo, get to Delilah's. I put on my shoes like 2 a.m. I Uber over there. And I don't know. I have no idea what I'm about to walk into, right? Like I said, I've never seen a famous person in my life. I don't really fully understand the scope of Hollywood yet.
Yeah.
And I pull up to the place, line, red carpet, red rope, dudes in suits, bouncing. I walk up, I'm like, I'm here for like Jamil Davis. He's like, yeah, come on in. Ryan, my friend Ryan comes out, gets me, pulls me in the back. And I'm just like looking around. I'm just like, whoa, Holly Berry. Oh, shit. Fucking, party next door. The guys from there, Chris Brown over in the corner, like up on top of the couch, like smoking weed. I'm like, holy shit! Like, this is so crazy. And we get taken into the back room, and this is where I'm supposed to meet Jamil. And I'm just sitting. There's some people back there. I just sit at this table, chilling. I'm kind of like nervous. My heart's kind of pounding. Back door opens up. Jamil walks in. He's got his arm around Drake. I'm like, holy fuck. I'm like, this is crazy. Like, nobody would believe me right now. Like, this is so, like, I'm going to go home in 3 days and like tell my friends about this who are like,
God.
We're all like, this is insane. And I had a very actually super awkward encounter with Drake in that moment. It's a really funny story. He kind of walks by me. I kind of like stand up to say hi, and then he doesn't see me. So I kind of sit back down, but he heard me. So then he turns around after I sat back down, after I stood up. And then he kind of like is like over his shoulder, and I'm like sitting in a chair behind him, like looking at him like this. And I'm like, I kind of put my arm out, and he kind of turns, and I'm like, oh, he didn't see it. So I pull my arm back, but then he did see it. So then he turns again, and then kind of just does this little like hand comes out a little bit, and I just like kind of like I just like brush it. I just like brush his hand, and that was the last time I ever met Drake. And then he kind of like left. But Jamil was still there, and everybody was kind of just like looking at me like, "Dude, you just fucked that up." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." But
it's amazing.
But yeah. But it was humbling. It
must have been surreal.
It was so surreal, bro. It was so surreal. I was not sure how to act. And I met Jamil that night basically, and then the following day we went to his house in Venice. He basically like we listened to some music. He pulled my day-to-day manager aside, and was like, "Yo, I want to work with you guys. Go home, tell your family you're leaving, and we'll get you a flight out here." And that was right before Christmas. So I went home, spent Christmas with my family, flew out to LA on January 7th, 2017. Didn't know where I was staying, didn't know where I was living, didn't know what was going on. Just had a suitcase packed. Got picked up at the airport by Jamil and his assistant. They drop us off at a house in West Hollywood. Don't even turn the lights on. They say, put your suitcases in the door here. Close the door, drive. First place we go is G-Eazy's house. I get in the studio with G that night. I meet him for the first time. It's just, and like the whole time,
no
like,
way.
Yeah, it's crazy,
Holy
dude.
shit.
And that was like probably my favorite artist at the time too, was G. Yeah. And
I can just picture you too, like going in like, oh, sick house too. And then he's like, oh no, like just put your shit down. We're leaving.
Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. He's like, no. I'm like, are we leaving here? He's like, yeah, probably. And then I'm like, okay. And so I get in the car and we're driving, and I'm like, I don't know where we're going either. I don't know that we're going to G's house. And then like my day-to-day manager's kind of elbowing me. He's like, I think we're going to G's. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that's fucking crazy. But yeah, we pull up to G's and we're sitting in his like studio area with his day-to-day. And then G comes in and just is so G. Like he's just so G. Like there's no off button. You know, he's got his comb in the back pocket, hair slicked back. And he's like, yo, it's so nice to meet you. And I'm like, damn, like my relationship with G is still great to this day, but he was so gracious to me when he didn't have to be. Right? Like
I've heard that about him.
I was the new guy
Yeah.
in the management company. I was the new kid. I was the new artist. He had no reason to take me under his wing. Like it wouldn't have been expected to, but he did. He totally did, and was so nice to me. He gave me so much game, so much wisdom. And then I had a song in that night when we were cooking up in the studio. I was playing him music, and I had a song that I had made for my mom for Mother's Day called "Hey Mama," and he had his producer DG. He had him flip the beat. So like it was like all on piano, and he flipped it and turned it into like a full song with like me on the hook and G rapping. And I was like, this is fucking crazy. Side note of all this, I had like some stomach issues at the time, bro, and I literally had to shit my brains out in the middle of that session. And the bathroom was directly next. It was a very small area, and the bathroom was just there. And I'm like, I'm not gonna go to the bathroom. I'm not gonna do it. And I'm like smoking, drinking. It's like 3 a.m. I'm like 5 a.m. St. Louis time. My stomach, I'm literally like sitting there like trying to smile, like sweating, like my stomach's like about to like implode on itself, and I'm just like trying to vibe. And, like the first time meeting G, first time having all the experience, and it couldn't have been more uncomfortable.
Did you end up taking a shit in G's
No,
house?
no, I didn't. Ended up saving it all the way home. Ended up saving, just riding it, just suffered silently.
Hey man, you do what you got to do.
You gotta do what you gotta do. He also had like a model girlfriend with him there at the time too, that I was like not about to like.
Just like I'm in Jeezy's house. I'm in LA. I'm gonna bite.
I'm not gonna blow up the bathroom and ruin the vibe right now. I'm not gonna do it.
Man.
And yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, so and that was just like my first ever experience in like Los Angeles for real. And then fast forward through all that, I worked with them for maybe 3 years. I actually just split from the management company. We just didn't really see eye to eye on a lot of things. They were going through a lot of transitions, and it was the best time for me to just kind of forge my own path. You know, like we said earlier, sometimes just things happen for a reason. Things change, and you learn that in the industry, like forever doesn't really exist, right? You're just constantly moving.
It can't exist. It'd be
Yeah,
at your
and it
detriment
shouldn't.
if it
Yeah,
did.
it shouldn't. But I learned so much from that experience. I got to go on tour with G. I learned a lot about the business side of things, right? I was
Yeah.
very up close and personal with it.
Man, the 15-year-old you must have been just freaking the fuck out in the best way, and it must have been proud of yourself.
For sure. I will say, you know, that was at the end of that first year, again, it was when I kind of had that like personal crisis, you could say. And I think, like, honestly, sometimes you don't question it now because things happen the way they happen, right? But I always wondered if I had came out here almost too early. Part of me wonders if I had developed enough as an artist yet to have all of these outside opinions that are very, very big, influential outside opinions addressing my music, influencing what I do as an artist, because I was so quick to listen because I just felt like, who am I, right? These guys must have all the answers. So they kind of put their hands in my music pretty deeply, and I feel like that kind of messed with me. I also had a little bit of like imposter syndrome, maybe. Like it honestly happened all so fast that I just couldn't get a grip on anything.
Absolutely.
And you start mingling with these artists that are top tier. And I'm just out of the basement, just off of YouTube beats.
Yeah.
And I just felt like sometimes I would listen to what these people are doing. I'm like, man, that's better than my shit. Arguably, I know it's subjective. I know that.
Totally.
But objectively, like, you know,
They
when
have
I'm in
more
a room with Daniel Caesar and he's playing me, what's that song called "Love" off his first album? It's like very gospel.
Oh, yeah, I know.
Right,
what
he's
you're talking
playing
about.
me that, and I'm like, you know, showing people a beat I wrote to over YouTube. I'm like, man, there's a separation here. There's a gap I need to close, and I'll do it. But it really fucked with me. It really like.
So interesting.
It messed with my confidence quite a bit, especially, you know, I got a lot of no's from my management at the time too. A lot of like, you know, let's take down your old music. We got to start fresh. Like, you know, a lot of this isn't good enough yet. You know, this isn't you know what I mean? Like, nothing, you know, management styles are all different, right? But
Totally.
for me, that fucked with me pretty hard.
And it's got to be a weird feeling to be in a situation where you start finding some success and you start finding yourself in rooms that you can only dream of being in. And then you also start hearing no simultaneously. And your head's in this place of, hey, I'm doing it, but I'm also being told no. Like, where's the balance? Am I too early? Am I too late? Am I good enough? Am I not? And it's you start fighting with your head.
The tunnel vision now is wide open, right? The tunnel vision I had in St. Louis, where I just put my head down in the basement of my mom's house and didn't have anybody giving opinions on anything, and I thought I was the best in the world, to now having like people who have reached extreme success in the music industry now being a part of being on my team. You can't not listen at all, right? You have to hear what they have to say. And I think I just over corrected there and kind of let them dictate too much with what I did, and then eventually got to a point where I didn't that certainty that I told you about earlier that I had to develop. I lost it. Like I would be in studio sessions not knowing if the song was done, not even knowing if it was good. I'm like, because half of my brain's going is my manager's going to like this, and the other half of me is going to, do I like this?
Rather than being in the project.
Does the producer like this? Does he think I'm good? Does the engineer like it? Does he think I'm good? I cared so much, you know, because I needed the validation only because for whatever reason I had lost that confidence within myself. I just wasn't sure if I was deserving of everything. You know, my 5-year plan ended up being a year and a half. It happened so quickly, and I was just like, sometimes I just thought, like, did I just get lucky as fuck? Like, did I just get lucky? I did, for sure, in some extent. Of course, luck is always involved, right? Like, luck meets hard work somewhere, and that's opportunity, right?
I also believe that luck is placed to the people that have the ability to use it. Maybe everybody who gets lucky doesn't deserve it yet, but I believe there's something inside of them that draws that, because they have what it takes to then make that real, to make it not luck, to make it talent. You know, some people just need their foot in the door in order to see what the whole picture looks like, and then they want it badly enough that they'll fight for it.
Yeah.
And would you say now, this, you know, the few years later, being off the management, and now you're coming out with the song in a couple of days? Actually, when this comes out, it'll be coming out tomorrow.
Yeah.
Would you Tangerine everybody.
With my boy Anthony Watts. Check it out.
I'm excited to hear it.
It'll accompany your summer well.
All right, people, get ready. Tomorrow you're about to download it a million fucking times.
Yeah.
So would you find that now, being in a little bit more of a retrospect stage, would you say that you found the balance between the two, that having the extreme of being in the garage to the extreme of being in the room with some of the greats allowed you to realize where you want to be and where you want to stay?
Yeah, for sure. I've definitely like leveled out, you know what I mean? After going through all that. And now I'm at a place where it's like realistic confidence, you know what I mean? Like, I know I just am who I am. I also kind of let go of like comparisons a bit, which takes just kind of growing up, right?
Absolutely.
And also like letting go of competitiveness, right? I grew up as such a competitive person. I'd played a lot of sports and stuff that I think I naturally just put it into music when it doesn't need to be there. So there's no right to be in art competition, you know what I mean? Although this industry can make it feel like that sometimes, especially when people care about numbers and shit like that.
Well, and I think the place for it is when it's in your own head and it makes you go learn your theory. Yeah. And it makes you go do this stuff. But then you also get to the point where you know, hey, I'm in the room with fucking G-Eazy for a reason. I'm not here because I'm lucky. I'm here because I worked my ass off and I deserve it. And now I got to let go of everything I know and be the 15-year-old kid that wanted this as badly as anybody else.
That's what I try to tap into now. That's what I try to tap into now.
That's huge. And that's such a big reason I have this podcast, is I want you guys, if you want to come to this industry and you want to be where he is right now, understand that you got to do what it takes in order to get there. But you also got to allow yourself the breaks and allow yourself fuck ups. That's the human experience. And if you don't have the human experience, it's probably not happening correctly. You know, you got to allow yourself to have the highs and the lows in order to find the balance, and to be as confident as you can be right now takes both sides, and takes overconfidence, and takes, you know, not quite meeting it at times. And that's so big. And I really think that's a massive part of success.
For sure.
Is just understanding your own levels.
I think, I'm not the only one who had those feelings, you know?
No,
Like,
they're important.
yeah, it's definitely part of the process, part of shaping who you are, and also narrowing down exactly what you want.
Yes.
I think, you know, like honestly, after experiencing those highs so quickly in my career, I kind of had to recalibrate and figure out what it is that I actually wanted, because like playing for 10,000 people and playing for 50,000 people is not like much of a difference, right? Like I had to really start changing my metrics, because for whatever reason, like certain things weren't driving me anymore. Right. Like I thought I really wanted like the fame. I thought I really wanted to be super popular. I thought I really wanted to go home and like stunt on my hometown and do shit like that.
Yeah.
And then like I got to a certain point where, you know, I found like real things that matter. Like I found my wife, found a good group of friends, finally found my pocket like in the music thing, and really enjoyed the process of making music. And this other shit about like being super famous and being popular and like and just being like having everybody's attention all the time, I just stopped caring about. That's another big distinguishing thing that kind of made my managers and I split, was I think they're very much like, you know, they built G's brand, they built this whole thing, like they're very used to that being the lifestyle, and that just, I don't know, man. You couldn't take the
everybody.
Midwest out of me. Like that just wasn't.
I'm the same way. I'm from
Yeah.
Detroit. It's
Yeah.
There's a humbleness that's instilled in you there, that if you're not meeting it, you feel like you need to, in the best way, and it keeps a lot of us balanced, hopefully.
Yeah. And it's not that like I don't want people to hear my music.
Yeah.
Right. Like nobody like. It's hard to find an artist who's making stuff like just for themselves. I mean, there's a little bit of, I don't know, like a need for validation. I feel like every artist has kind of a driving force, right?
That's part of the human experience too, and I think you'll find that anywhere.
Yeah. So I respect my humanness. Like I know I do things for ulterior, like I have ulterior motives all the time, and you know, there's moving parts and moving reasons as to why I want this or why I want that. But I had to narrow down what it is that I actually wanted. And the answer ended up being very broad. I just want to make music. I just want to be in the moment when I make music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Absolutely.
I just want to make music like I was when I was 15. That's all I want, is to maintain and protect that feeling.
Yeah.
And if I can do that and make a little bit of money off of it, what else
sounds beautiful.
could you want? You know what I mean? Like tour, I'll tour. I love performing and things like that. I don't necessarily need number ones. I don't necessarily need this or that. Like I don't need to be super famous. I don't need that. I just like already being able to just do it is, man.
Trust me, I live for the experiment. But there is one place in my life that I don't want to be an experiment, and that's when trimming my balls. Luckily, the Performance 4.0 package is here. Inside this package, you will find the Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, the Weed Whacker ear and nose trimmer, the Crop Preserver ball deodorant, the Crop Reviver toner, the Performance boxer briefs, and a new travel bag to hold all of your new favorite things. I needed the Lawnmower 4.0 so much more than I ever realized. This thing has a ceramic blade to reduce grooming accidents, all thanks to their advanced skin-safe technology, a flashlight so I can actually see where I'm trimming. And not only that, but this thing's waterproof, so I can trim just about anywhere. I love this thing, and I love the whole 4.0 package, from the Lawnmower, the Weed Whacker, the Crop Preserver, the Crop Reviver, and all the free gifts they threw in. Trust me, fellas, your balls will thank you. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code EXPERIMENT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code EXPERIMENT at manscaped.com. Unlock your confidence and always use the right tools for the job with Manscaped.
It's funny how when you find yourself meeting the expectations of your 15-year-old self, you realize that you now have new expectations. And when you think you want something, by the time you get to it, you realize that there's something more important and more fulfilling. And I commend you on that, man. I think that's incredible that you are willing to look at yourself enough to understand your place in the industry for yourself. What makes you get up out of the bed every day? What allows you to feel like, okay, I did my work today, now I can go enjoy my time with my wife, or whatever it is, whatever.
Being a good friend, things like that.
And you're a sweet guy too, and I think if you weren't, then you'd be lying to yourself, because you clearly that's genuine and that's yours, I love it, man. I'm excited to hear all the new music. Please, before we wrap this up, tell us about Tangerine real quick.
Sure. Yeah. So Tangerine comes out May 20th with a really, really good friend of mine named Anthony Watts, also an amazing artist. I think you guys said you might have him on here. He's be a good person
We're
to talk
talking
to.
to him right now.
Yeah, he's dope. We've been writing together for years, started with the K-pop stuff. We'll have to get into that another podcast time. There's a lot to unpack there.
I was just about to say, I need to get you back in. We have so much more to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot.
We'll have to get one with the whole crew too.
Yeah, that'd be super fun, man. But yeah, so Tangerine comes out May 20th. It's just like a summer, honestly, it's like a summer anthem. It was a very easy write. Then when we created that song, it just felt good right off the rip. We were trying to get it to Justin Timberlake for like a year, and just never happened. And then I posted it on TikTok one day, and it kind of like blew up, and I was like, I hit up Anthony, like, dude, what are we doing, man? Like, forget Justin Timberlake, love Justin Timberlake, but we should just put this out.
Absolutely.
And so we kind of got the parts moving for that.
Get that old mentality back.
Yeah,
sure.
get that mentality. I'm like, let's just fucking drop this shit, dude. I have a good relationship with Topo Chico, the water company.
Absolutely.
So I hit him up like, yo, I got this song called Tangerine. You guys have a flavor called Twisted Tangerine. We could do something here. They gave me a budget to shoot a music video, so we shot a music video for it. And
oh man, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, we're actually doing a giveaway today. We're gonna for pre-saves and stuff. We're gonna give like 3 people like a 3-month supply of Topo Chico, which would be sick. Yeah. So, but yeah, so anyway, the song's a fun one. It's a fun one, and I think, like I said, it'll accompany your summer well.
It'll be Anthony Russo and Anthony Watts.
Anthony and Anthony.
I love it, man, dude. Such a fucking pleasure to have you on here. Such a pleasure to just meet you and confirm all the amazing things I've heard about you. I'm excited to hear all the incredible things you do, and I really appreciate you letting me have you on this platform. And I think there's a lot of people that'll gain from your story. So
it was a pleasure's all mine, man. I appreciate you having me on here, and I'm glad we really got to make this happen.
Dude, I can't wait. Now we're gonna shut these cameras off, and I want to hear some Tangerine.
Hell yeah,
Sounds
good.
Thank you, and to everybody listening.
Hey there, I'm Anthony Russo, and this is an experiment.
Thank you, brother. Goodbye, everybody.
See you guys. Thank you.
Peace.
The experience is the experiment.